Real estate is one of the financial assets many of us hope to put into our portfolio one day, but the challenge is the cost of entry is high. While you might be able to buy shares of a given stock for just a few dollars a month, buying into a house is a significantly larger purchase that may require tens of thousands of dollars right up front. Before we get deep into this, please do us the favor of subscribing to the channel. Click like on this video if you would, and come back every week for another installment of Better is Always Better. That problem of how do I come up with the money to buy that first piece of real estate is one I faced years ago. Like so many people, I really didn't think I had the money to do it, and I didn't. So I took a different route. I was in my mid 30s. I didn't have a great income. I was married to a wonderful woman who also didn't have a great income, and we were having our first kid. Plenty of headwinds for somebody who wants to buy real estate. For far too many of us, that's the classic recipe that just causes us to give up. Throw up our hands, say, I can't do it. There's no way. It's just too expensive. It's impossible. No, it's not. You just may have to take a different route than you originally dreamed of. Here's the story of how my wife and I got our first house. This is it, our first house. It's just a basic 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath concrete block home in Central Florida. Nothing special. It's in a development where there's like 3 or 4 different house designs, and they're all pretty much the same. But we didn't buy this house, we rented it. We had moved over 1,000 miles from where we'd grown up and first met. We were starting new jobs. We were in a whole new city. We didn't know anybody there to speak of. It was a little bit challenging. So renting was the obvious thing to do. Back in 1993, when we first saw this house, it was renting for $550 a month. That was pretty standard for a house of this type in this location back then. Today, that same house could easily rent for 4 times that much. Inflation is real. And yes, it can be a real pain in the ass, but it can also work in your favor over a long time frame. 3 years after moving into this house, we were a little more stable, a little more comfortable, and we started looking around for a house to buy. Our house, not a rental house. But we never really found anything that we liked much better than where we were that was in our price range. So after much searching and not really finding anything that thrilled us, I called the landlady with an odd request. I said, would you be willing to sell this house? We've been looking and we think this would be a good fit for us. Now, I was prepared to offer her up to $64,000 for the house. That was the market rate as far as I understood it at the time. I was very surprised when the landlady came back and said, I do have a few projects I'm working on and I could use an infusion of cash. I would be willing to sell one property, but I would need to get $64,000 for it. Literally one phone call, we were done. We had a deal. We didn't need real estate agents because we'd already put together the basic deal. Went to her lawyer's office, signed things over. 6 weeks after that phone call, my wife and I were in the same house, but now we owned it. It's a whole different game. Now, we were owners finally, and we were pretty excited about that, but we were not wealthy by any means. As a matter of fact, when we left the closing for that home purchase, we didn't have enough money between us to buy lunch. We had to go back to the house and just root around in the cabinets and the refrigerator and eat whatever we had. We literally couldn't afford a trip to McDonald's. Sometimes things are a little tight, but if you take the long view, it can be worth it. What made us perhaps a little different than the average home buyer was we knew on that first day, after all our discussions, we were going to keep that house for the long term. And someday we would pay it off, we would find our forever home, and we would rent that house out as kind of a stipend in our retirement years. That was the plan. And we did pretty much that, but it took longer than I thought. We lived in that house for 25 years, 3 as renters, 22 as owners. I didn't intend it to be a quarter of a century, but I'm really glad we stuck it out and did that because it has turned out to be really the linchpin that set us off in a whole new direction. Building real estate into your portfolio can be a much longer process than you thought. It doesn't have to be, but it can be, and it was in our case. Having kids, having health issues, job changes, all the normal family obligations, all of those things can come into play to throw a monkey wrench into your time frame. Things don't always work out the way you expect they would, but they do work out if you continue and you are consistent in your desire to meet a goal. So our goal was to buy a house. We eventually did. Our goal was to eventually rent that house for profit, and we eventually did. It just took a lot longer than I thought it would. Right from that first day when we purchased the house, we had made a decision. We're never going to miss a mortgage payment. This house is the key to our financial future, and we're going to stay on top of this no matter what. And we did. When the opportunity presented itself, we made additional principal payments. We paid down our mortgage a little faster. That 30-year mortgage had years shaved off of it because we would just add an extra $50 or an extra $100. And eventually, by the time we got towards the end, I was able to make double payments on that house and pay it off in 22 years, not 30. Today, we still own that house. It's rented out for a profit, and it's done very well for us. In fact, having paid off that house and then being able to rent it out for profit gave us the equity we needed to buy our second and our third rental homes. And believe me, it rents for substantially more than the $550 a month it rented for when I moved in 1993. That first house, the challenges, the hurdles, the effort, the heartache at times to get that first house and keep it has really paid off for us. It has made an enormous difference in our lives. Build your knowledge base. Start putting away money for when you're going to make that purchase. And trust me, you need the money to make the purchase and to make the repairs and for maintenance that comes later. And keep a little bit extra because there's always a surprise coming that you just had no idea was out there. We can talk about all of that and more in future episodes right back here on Better is Always Better, because the thing I want to leave you with is you can do this. Just like my wife and I did all those years ago, you don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to have a massive income. You don't have to be connected to all kinds of important people. You just have to decide this is what you're going to do. Don't be discouraged by what looks like a dauntingly steep hill that you have to climb to get from where you are now to where you want to be in the future. Just let the time frame stretch out to meet your capacity. When you hit a bump in the road, that's okay. The road's not closed. It's just a little more difficult for the moment. You can get past this. You're not the first and you won't be the last. You just have to commit yourself to being on this journey, and you can do it, and you can do it successfully. Thanks so much for watching. I've been very lucky in this life, and real estate has been a part of it. If you want to add real estate to your asset portfolio, you can probably do that wherever you are. Come on back here each week and we'll talk more about it right here on Better is Always Better.